and then eventually we're going to have disclosure. And what you're saying, like at the end of this year, 2009, you know, by just releasing this congressional research report, it's not so much disclosure because they didn't find the answers for Carter, but what they did was they prepared him for, you know, this is what might be going on. So there's an openness process at work here, and I think that is what we are now witnessing and are in the midst of.
Well, if they think they can stretch this out for 3 more years, my hat's off to them, but I'll take the bet. Right? I mean, they. What was that phrase? If you want to make God laugh, tell her your plans. Right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, right.
They've had 62 years to plan out something, right? So this idea, okay, now we'll go through it like, you know, I don't think so. But let me comment on something that Carrie said, because I'm going to get into this a little bit on Sunday, without getting into the outcomes, predicting any outcomes. I do believe, and I'm speaking from a more nuts and bolts sense, I have this hunch that disclosure of ET presence will trigger very possibly the greatest era of reform in history, going back to the summer after the flood. In other words, it's going to create a kind of a cascading effect in which, because of the fact that the world's attention will suddenly be focused pretty much in the same direction, billions of eyes focusing in the same direction, and that everything sort of is tossed up in the air, everything goes on the table suddenly, which happens once in a while, that the reformist movements that are out there, and there's reformist movements everything, right? You just don't hear about them, but they're out there struggling along, working out of their basements, will suddenly be given life and energy and money. And you're going to see literally a systemic, I think, spectral reform that will be staggering in its size and scope. Now, will it lead us to wonderful things? Will it all work out? Will it be like the French Revolution? You start off with a good idea, the next thing you know, you're lopping heads. I don't know. But I know that the opportunity is there. And for me, that's one of the reasons to keep going and do this. It's not just, they'll tell us the ETs are here. We have a world that has basically been shoving stuff under the rug for a couple of centuries, putting things in the closet, sticking them in the attic, not taking care of business, not dealing with what has to be done. And that was going to catch up with us. And I think this is the trigger that suddenly says, okay, we got to clean out the basement, clean out the attic, we got to cut the lawn, we got to take care of business, we got to clean up the secret empire, we got to start filming the Bilderberg meetings, we got to toss the skull and bones idiots off the Yale campus. We got to do a lot of things. We need monetary reform. We need doctrinal reform in the Christian church, the Islamic faith. We got to take care of stuff because a lot of stuff is stupid, right? It's ridiculous. But we're locked up. After the last 2,000 years, we're just completely all locked up. We can't move. And so you go to the Congress for some simple thing, and the Congress is going, I can't move. And you go to the Islamic faith and say, look, we need a little change here. We're going to have a world class. We can't act. Catholic Church can't change its policy on birth control. We can't get anything done. All of a sudden, boom, into this comes the biggest event of all time. So, what happens after that's up to us. I just look as my job as trying to help people look and see and maybe be part of the post-disclosure world. But we've hopefully earned our right to be on the stage. Hopefully we've earned the right to be heard, but not necessarily so. The mainstream may come and say, look, you guys have been bugging us about this for 20 years. Yeah, you were right. Now go away. We hate you. Right? We've got PhDs from Harvard and Yale, and I've been working in the government for 40 years, and I really know all about this stuff. You all go away. We may have to stand together hard because the mainstream will want us to go away. We're going to have to fight for our post-disclosure opportunities and positions, which is why I hope that the tensions and disagreements that exist, particularly between the exopolitical field and the old guard ufological field, don't get worse.
Is that issue worth addressing here?
Oh yeah,
it could be worth addressing, but can I add something to that? I was told by people in the intelligence community when they tried to hand the phone over to Paul Hellyer, ex-minister of defense, because they were going to talk to him about keeping quiet. You know, Paul Hellyer, ex-minister of defense, read Corso's book and said this was a very serious situation we needed to deal with. We were in Hawaii and the phone was going right across me and they said to me, Paula, you people do not know what you're doing. We got it handled.
Who said this to Paul?
The intelligence community. I don't want to mention the names, but there were people that I know that are working on that side of the fence. in the UFO question.
Right.
They are very well-known people, and they're connected with money. And when they tried to hand the phone to Paul Hellyer, and I wouldn't let the phone go by. I said, he's on his honeymoon. You can't talk to him. They said to me, Paula, you people are amateurs. You do not know what you're talking about. We haven't handled. Now, the words "we haven't handled," and my brain was going, what do you have handled? Who do you think you're dealing with?
Yeah, they have it so well handled that we have two fine trade center buildings in New York just standing tall there. You can go see them right now.
And so he never got the phone call that time. He got it later because they wanted to make sure they told him to calm down and stop speaking. So I think
Okay, but I have a question here. I have a question that's going to blow this thing wide open. Actually, it's two-pronged. But one, what if disclosure is the only thing that can happen prior to a real invasion scenario that's been going on while we're here on the planet the whole time?
Then it'll
And
be a
what
lot-
if the days are numbered for that scenario that's real? I'm positing it as real. And what if there's only, as our recent witnesses saying, there's only about 3 years left on this planet before, if we continue at the rate we're going, there's no, I don't know, oxygen, the whole thing is trashed. Now, what if we're actually living a timeline that doesn't just go out, stretching out there for all these different educational processes to take place, but we've actually reached a kind of end game in which humanity has no choice, that a choice has to be made, and some people have decided they're going to make that choice for us. What if?
Well, Carrie, everybody has to die. I would rather die knowing the truth of this world than die with a head full of government lies.
Okay, I'm saying
that's a good
disclosure happens. Disclosure is happening. It's happening right here today. But what I'm suggesting is something that hasn't been talked about and is never talked about, okay? We have a false flag alien invasion on the one hand, that the government, because I don't know if people out there have seen my video sighting that I had at Lake Geneva, one night, of this gigantic craft that was clearly, at least to me, being driven by not only our guys, but maybe a couple reptilians at the helm, so to speak. I mean, what you have to deal with is that we may be reaching, according to the whistleblower that we started this whole conversation with, positing that Obama is coming forward with this information. On top of it, that same guy who is an insider with what he says is a higher clearance than presidents, okay? His access is higher than the president today. And he is saying, number one, prepare. Number two, you've got no idea what the real story is, that it's not even being talked about, even in our circles. We still haven't gotten to the very bottom of the story. It involves things like race, like a whole huge slew of robots. Okay? It involves travel outside this solar system that we've been involved in, we, the government. It involves so many different levels. To say they've got it handled, well, they just might. And what they've got handled is not necessarily something in our favor. And so this is, I know we're laughing and there's possible and there's not, there could be a lot of different levels. There's the false flag idea. But there are agendas at work here, and there may be things that have not been dreamed of here in your philosophy. And I have to say that Henry Deacon is sitting out there in the audience, and at any time now, because you have a certain degree of knowing, you're welcome to join us here. But what was drilled into Henry Deacon from day one, once he joined these black projects, was we are the wolves and they are the sheep. Okay? There's a sensibility about a perception, about an attitude that goes behind that. And that is not to do with being a member of the United States. It's being a member of a secret government that's worldwide. and has an agenda, okay? And is